It is 1936. This animal has survived for millions of years. It has lived through changing climates, disappearing landscapes, and the rise and fall of entire ecosystems. And now, there is only one left. Its name is Benjamin. And before the year ends, the world will lose the last known thylacine forever. The thylacine, often called the Tasmanian tiger or Tasmanian wolf, was one of the most unusual predators ever to exist. It was not a tiger. It was not a wolf. It was a marsupial, a distant relative of kangaroos and wombats. A carnivorous marsupial, unlike anything alive today. Adults usually measured around 1 to almost 2 meters in total length, including the tail, and stood roughly 60 centimeters tall at the shoulder. They had a long, slender body built for endurance. Their most recognizable feature was the series of dark stripes running across their back and lower body. These stripes were not just decoration. They helped break up their outline in the forests and grasslands of Tasmania. The thylacine also had one of the strangest jaws among mammals. It could open its mouth to an angle of around 80 degrees, an extreme gape compared with most mammals. For years, this feature created myths about its abilities. But scientists now understand that the thylacine's skull was built for catching and consuming prey rather than delivering the kind of crushing bite seen in animals like large cats. Its body was full of unique adaptations: a stiff, almost kangaroo-like tail, powerful hind legs, a pouch where females carried their young, and a hunting style that likely relied on patience and stamina rather than brute force. It was a predator shaped by millions of years of evolution, and it was not a species that was naturally doomed, because the thylacine had already survived what nature had thrown at it. For millions of years, thylacines lived across Australia and New Guinea. Fossil evidence shows that their relatives existed long before modern humans reached Australia. They survived major environmental changes, including ice ages and shifting ecosystems. They were not a fragile species hanging on by a thread. They were one of the most successful carnivorous marsupials in Australian history. But then something changed. Not in the thylacine. Around 50,000 years ago, humans arrived in Australia. The arrival of people transformed the continent. Large animals disappeared, habitats changed, and the balance between predators and prey began to shift. The exact reasons for the thylacine's decline on mainland Australia are still debated by scientists. Human hunting, changes in prey populations, and competition with other species all played possible roles. But one major competitor arrived later: the dingo. Dingoes were introduced to Australia roughly 3,500 years ago. They were highly adaptable predators. They could travel long distances, hunt cooperatively, and survive in many environments where thylacines also lived. Over time, dingoes became widespread across mainland Australia. The thylacine disappeared from the mainland thousands of years before European colonization. Scientists continue to study exactly how much each factor contributed, but the pattern is clear. The species survived on the island of Tasmania because one major competitor was missing. Dingoes never reached Tasmania. Separated by the Bass Strait, the island became the thylacine's final refuge. For thousands of years, it remained there, until another wave of human pressure arrived, and this time it would move much faster. When European settlers expanded across Tasmania in the 1800s, the relationship between humans and thylacines changed dramatically. Settlers brought sheep, and when livestock losses occurred, many farmers blamed thylacines. Whether thylacines were responsible for all reported attacks became a subject of debate, but the perception was enough to create a campaign against them. The animal became seen as a threat, a problem to be removed. In 1888, the Tasmanian government introduced a bounty scheme that paid people for killing thylacines. The program continued until 1909. During those years, more than 2,000 bounty claims were approved. The exact number of thylacines killed is uncertain because records do not represent every animal taken, but the effect was devastating. Hunting pressure intensified. The population became smaller and more isolated. And the species that had survived for millions of years was pushed toward collapse. But the final chapter was not written by hunters alone. It was also written by captivity. As wild thylacines became rarer, zoos began collecting the remaining individuals. Some were captured for public display. Others were taken because people believed they could preserve the species. Instead, captivity became the place where the final survivors disappeared. And what happened to the last known thylacine alive is one of the most tragic endings in modern extinction history. Benjamin was the last known captive thylacine. He lived at Hobart Zoo in Tasmania. Photographs and film footage from the 1930s show a real, living animal, walking, turning, and looking into the camera. Not a legend, not a reconstruction, a species still alive in the modern world. But Benjamin's final years were spent behind bars. On the night of September 7, 1936, temperatures dropped. Benjamin was accidentally locked out of his sheltered sleeping area. The following morning, he was found dead. The cause of death was recorded as exposure. A few months earlier, the Tasmanian government had officially protected the thylacine. But the protection came too late. The last known individual had already died. And that is what makes the thylacine's extinction so haunting. It did not disappear in some ancient catastrophe. It was not wiped out by a sudden natural disaster. It vanished while people were watching, while photographs were being taken, while zoos were operating, while governments were keeping records. The thylacine was close enough to touch, and yet it was lost. But there is a deeper question. Did the thylacine truly have to disappear? The answer is complicated. Extinctions are rarely caused by a single moment. But in the thylacine's case, human decisions played a major role at every stage. Humans altered ecosystems. Humans introduced new competitors. Humans created a bounty system targeting the animal. Humans continued capturing the remaining survivors instead of protecting them. And humans failed to recognize how close the species was to extinction until there was almost nothing left. The thylacine did not evolve itself into extinction. It was pushed there. Today, scientists still study the thylacine. Its remains are preserved in museums. Its DNA is being researched. And reports of possible sightings have continued for decades. Most have not been verified. But because the thylacine lived in remote areas and disappeared relatively recently, scientists have continued to examine whether small populations could have survived longer than the official 1936 date. Some extinction models suggest the species may have persisted beyond that point, although there is no confirmed evidence that any thylacines remain alive today. The mystery continues. The Tasmanian tiger was not a creature from a forgotten prehistoric world. It was alive when cameras existed, when cars existed, when people could have protected it. A predator that survived millions of years was gone in a few generations. And perhaps the most disturbing part is this. The thylacine was not lost because humanity discovered too little about it. It was lost because humanity learned too late what it was worth.